me, Cynthia here in my quilt lab, and this is the last video for the block of the month, Solare by Northcott, Banyan Batiks. I'm working for Adirondack Quilts. You can see all those links in the description below. Please check them out. Let's dig into this final video and put this quilt together. All right, let's go. So first and foremost, there are a few items that you're going to need to cut this time around. You'll see that there are some strips you're going to be making of this dark blue, both for the inner border and for the binding. I didn't cut the binding because I like to do that right at the end, but I did cut the inner border. Set it aside because you're not going to need it for a while, and then dig into those two final cuts that you have to do. You'll see there's a fabric 3 and a fabric 12 and 3, that pretty cream and that pretty light teal. So of the cream, you're having some squares, and that's going to go in the outer border. So cut those, and again, set them aside because you aren't going to need them for a while. And then there's a bunch of 3.5-inch strips that you're going to be either pairing with each other or adding to the corner blocks outside. So let's talk about fabric 12. You'll see that there's 3 different sizes, 3 sizes of lengths. There's the short, the medium, and the long. You can see that the medium and the long is going to go along these 4 cornerstones, and I'll show you a couple slides right here of how to put it together. There you go. So you have all those pieces together. That was step 1. Give them all a nice press. And if you haven't squared these down to 12.5, I believe it's 12.5. Yes, 12.5. Make sure they are, because I did have to square one of them down before I could add these 2 sides. This is finished for right now. We're not going to touch these blocks for a little while. So once you got step 1 done, set them aside and get going. Let's talk about step 2. It's the 2 small pieces. I think they're 8.5s, 9.5s, excuse me. Now, the instructions tell you to cut the pieces and then pair them together. But what I did is, so I had 5 strips of the 3.5, and of 3 of the strips, I was able to get all of the mediums and the larges out. And then the last 2 strips, I seamed together in one long seam first, and then subdivided it to get my little squares. You're going to need 8 of these. You can see 1 here and 1 there, and then when you piece them together, you're going to have 4 sides. Okay, so the 4 times 2 is 8, and that's quilt math. That's step 2. So whether you feel comfortable doing it their way or my way, I didn't have any problems and had enough material to do it my way as well. So step 2. Step 3. Okay, now it's getting excited. So pull those blocks out, make sure they're nicely pressed, and start sorting. You'll see that they're having you do it in sections. I love these instructions because it has you do into small sections instead of putting everything on the board. This is step 3, that first row. You can see that there's the 2 small pieces that we just talked about, and the smaller kind of diagonal with the cute little teals. You should have a bunch of these, and then a bunch of the crowns as well. Please note the direction of the diagonal, because that's going to be really important, both here and here. So you're going to piece these in one long strip. You're going to make 4 of them. As far as pressing, it doesn't give any instructions, so use your best judgment. Personally, for me, I pressed towards the big block because there's a lot of seams right here. That way I didn't have to press the seams. And for the mountain ones, I think it looks like a mountain, I like to press them open because I'm really trying to get those points to meet. And for me, it's just easier to press open and try to get those points nice and, together. So you're going to be making this 4 times. The next step, we're on to step number 4. We're moving and grooving, is the the bigger version. So there's that small one. I remember we made the bigger version of this, but it has the little blue in the corner. You can see it's going to be making this stripe right through there. Make sure you're putting that blue where it belongs. And again, once again, notice the diagonal. Also, we have these two squares. They're almost exactly the same. So please pay attention to the color. The teals are outside of the purples. See, there's the purple and there's that dark teal. Make sure you're doing it correctly. Star, teal, purple, purple, teal, star. So that's really important. You don't want to accidentally mix it up because you're going to see this beautiful line come across when it gets pieced together. Again, this is going to be done 4 times. And press, just like I said, the way you feel most comfortable. Give everything a nicely press, and then it's time to put these 2 rows together in this row right here. Nice, we're on to step 5 already, okay? So things to watch out for. That diagonal. Throw your pins in where they should match at that little 1/4 inch on each side. Right here in the center as well. And then again on the other side and down where it meets that one little blue corner. So you'll get a nice long line, okay? Give it a nice press. Once you got these done, you're going to have 4 of them. You're going to set all of this aside and we're going to move on to the next section. Let's go. All right, so let's move on to step 6. You'll see in the book, it breaks up these 4 and these 4 in step 6 and 7. Let's see, this one 6 and this one 7. I like to lay everything out so you can see it. You're going to be making each foursome twice because they're going to be opposites in the next row. So what I did is when I pieced them together, of course, in rows, I pressed towards the king's crown because there's a lot of folds here and it's easier to press that way. And that way it nests really nicely here in the center for each of them. So I did that twice for this group of 4 and then twice for this group of 4. That's 6 and step 6 and 7. Then you're going to attach them to the beautiful, this is my favorite block out of the whole quilt. Attach them to either sides of one of the bigger blocks. Not the center one, but the other one. You're going to do this row twice because this row is going to be turned 180 degrees and look like this one down here at the bottom. So this is the completed version of this one. And that's step 8 right there. Step 9 is that center row. And you can see I've just pieced 2 of them together. I still have to do this one right here to get that completely done. So when you're finished, you'll have 3 rows. Now, when I pieced this guy together, I'm piecing folding towards my favorite block. The fold is right here on this side. So that way, again, when we put these 3 rows together, it'll be a nice kind of nesting spot right there at each of those 4 corners. And that is step 10. We are almost done. Let me put this entire block together. Then we'll pull out those first pieces we just did and talk about putting those together, okay? Keep sewing. And we're back. So here is where it is at the end of step 10. That's this big center. Step 11. Step 11 goes, we're starting to pull those pieces that we did earlier, and we're going to put them on the side. So this is where my nice size wall feels a little small now. So we're going to put the 2 side ones on first, one over here and one over here. Again, remember to watch where the stripe happens so that you're getting that nice 1/4 inch. So pin that really nicely. Give it a good press, of course. Before you move on to the tops, we have to add those pretty little cornerstone blocks to the other 2. So I have one of them up here on the wall already. The other one's over here on the floor because, like I said, I don't have a wall big enough. So put those 2 pieces on. I am probably going to press towards that plane and then press this way into the block for the side ones. That way I can nest up right there in the center when I get everything put together. And then we'll have one big block before we hit the borders. So that is steps number 11, 12, the two top and bottoms, and then putting the 3 rows together into the one big center. That is number 13. So let me do this, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the last 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Only 5 more steps before this guy is finished. So I'll see you in just a bit. To the machine. All right, so here is the inside of the quilt. There's just borders left, and as you can see, I can't even fit the entire quilt on camera. So we're going to talk through these borders, and I'm going to give you some tips, but this is where I'm not going to be able to show you the next 2, but I want to give you as many tips as I possibly can before we go. The next section, step 14, is about that first border. Remember those 2-inch strips of that dark blue that we made? This is where you need to bring them out. Start chaining them together, because it'll tell you the lengths of the 2 sides and the lengths of the top and the bottom. But before you cut it to that point, let me just throw out some tips. Give this quilt a nice press before you do, and measure the centers and all the sides. So horizontally, center, top, and bottom. So you can get 2 of the sides, and then of course vertically center, top, and bottom after you put on the 2 sides. The reason is I know for a fact that I have a little bit of waviness on the side, and if I measure just the outsides of them and add my borders, it's going to make it even wavier. So I want to measure that center position, and that's what I'm going to cut my borders at, so that I can hopefully curtail any growth, any waviness to the outside as possible. So you can see right here, I've pinned a measuring tape towards the center, because I'm just going to do the top and the bottom first, and then I can turn it whichever way. It's, of course, a medallion, so it really doesn't matter which sides you do first. I am measuring at about, let's see, 60, 80, 4 5/8. So I'm actually pretty good center-wise, but I know that my top and my bottom is a little bigger, especially my bottom. I think it's almost at 84 3/4 at the bottom, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to cut it at this, because I don't want those sides to be any bigger than that. When I cut this, I'm going to find the center, I'm going to put the center there, and I'm going to pin out. And then I'm going to sew it both on the top and the bottom, okay? I'm going to do the same thing the other way. I'm going to measure the center, and I'm going to measure both sides just to see where I am, but I'm going to use that center measure as my cutting for the 2 other sides to hopefully curtail any waviness that I have in my quilt. Be easier to quilt in the end. And you know, none of us are perfect, but we're going to try to make it as perfect as possible. Once you're finished with those borders, it's time to put the outer border in. Remember all those fun blocks that we did? Looked a little something like this. Yeah, you should have 32 of these. So you're going to group them into 4 groups. So 4 groups of 8. For 2 of those, you're going to add those little squares that we cut at the very beginning. Remember those little squares that of the kind of that light creamy blue that we did at the beginning? So 2 rows of just 8, 2 rows of 8 with a cornerstone on each. And then you do the 2 of 8 first, and you add the cornerstones at the end. That is step 15, 16, and 17. Then it will be all done, guys. That's it. We have finished this quilt. Because it's a piece border, what I like to do is I like to do a little stitch along the edge, a basting stitch. What about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch from the edge? It's just to help keep all those seams together, so that way when I take it and put it on my long arm, I don't have to worry about any seams coming undone. I'm going to give it a really, really good press before I put it on the long arm and quilt it. I recommend doing that too, whether you're doing the quilting yourself or if you're sending it off to somebody. Just it'll make your long armer way happier if you do a little basting stitch. And you have your blue for the binding. And then you just, get to pick out your whatever backing. I actually picked that blue for my backing as well, but I know there's lots of different varieties to pull from. It's been super fun doing this quilt with you. I hope you enjoy this. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. I have already started on the 2024 Banyan Batiks Quilts of the Month called Symphony. Let me grab it. There it is right there. If you look at the end of my month 11, you can see a close-up of it. I hope you'll join me for that one as well. And if you found any of this fun and exciting, please give me a thumbs up. Please share with your friends. Please subscribe. And I hope to see you next year with the Symphony Block of the Month. Get that Solare finished. Tag me at My Quilt Lab so I can see your progress. And I will see you next time. And as always, keep quilting. Bye-bye.